Hey everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for joining me today for the latest installment in my 50 for 2023 project here on the channel. Simple project, made a list of 50 singles at the end of last year that I wanted to try to pursue in the 2023 calendar year. And we're going to see how far along I can get. When I left off last, I was at 20 cards down, 30 to go. And today we're going to look at card number 21, which was on the list simply as a new T206 card. I love these cards. I love all tobacco cards. Huge fan of T206, like many collectors are. I'm just a sucker for anything this old, and that kind of the dead ball era of baseball. Players that played more than 100 years ago. I just find it fascinating. I've collected a handful of them over time, and I've shown some on the channel before, including the 4 that you see up in the background. But for this project, as I said, all I wanted, the only guideline I set for this item on the list was just any new T206 that I didn't already have. And I found a really awesome one recently. Showed this on my buddy Dylan and Adam's Turn Back the Clock episode that I did recently. It's the T206 Piedmont back Hal Chase of the New York Americans. Check out this card. So awesome. Of course, you know, there are hundreds of T206 cards out there and many affordable T206 cards out there. So how did I decide on this card specifically? Well, I've been listening to, or just finished listening to, Lawrence Ritter's book, The Glory of Their Times. It's a book where he interviewed in the 1960s a bunch of players from the dead ball era, you know, that played baseball late 1800s through maybe the 1920s or so. And what's cool about the audiobook is it's the actual interviews themselves. So you're hearing, you know, players like Chief Myers, Christy Mathewson's original catcher from back in the day, and guys like that just telling really crazy, awesome, interesting stories. And listening to that really kind of rejuvenated my interest in pre-war. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I checked off this item off the list of 50 right after finishing that book. And in that book, I heard more than one player when asked like who was the best of their day, of their era. More than one person answered Hal Chase, the subject of this card. And he was known especially for his fielding. At least among his contemporaries, he was generally viewed as the best fielding first baseman and arguably the best fielder, period, at any position. Guy just gets a ton of love from the people that played alongside him. Both Babe Ruth and Walter Johnson called him the best first baseman they'd ever seen. So very high praise there coming from some of the game's best. Defensive whiz, but he was also pretty good with the bat. He did win a home run title in the Federal League in 1915 during a brief pause from Major League play, and then won a batting title in 1916 with the Reds. So he was definitely an adept player at offense, but was more known for his glove. He was really regarded as like the first superstar or star player for the franchise that would turn into the Yankees. But despite all of that, I got this card for about $100, and it's clean on the back, no paper loss. It is graded to like a lot of my T206 cards are, but this is perfect. Why is this card so comparably cheap? When viewed against a lot of his, other star players of his era. Well, he was probably the most crooked, or arguably the most crooked player in Major League history. He was just like a degenerate gambler, known to take bribes, to encourage teammates to take bribes, to throw games. He was constantly trying to take advantage and take money from teammates in the clubhouse, and just, had a huge problem with gambling and money. He was even implicated in the Black Sox scandal, although he was ultimately acquitted. But at the end of the day, those habits and that personality and that persona kind of resulted in him being sort of unofficially blackballed from baseball. And he's really looked down upon in that sense, and it kind of counts as a large negative against him. So he's not a Hall of Fame player, but he's probably the first star player for the franchise that became the New York Yankees. So I just think, that is so cool. And just hearing his name mentioned so many times in that book, The Glory of Their Times, I was actually really surprised to find that his pre-war stuff is as affordable as it is. So I want the kind of the bad guys to be represented in my collection as part of the history of the sport alongside the good guys. So I don't shy away from, Pete Rose cards or Barry Bonds cards or things like that. And so for the same reason, not going to shy away from Hal Chase. and very, very happy to have that one in the collection. And then today's episode, while this other card is not really on the list, it's going to be a twofer today. Just got to looking because of that book at pre-war and got into a little bit of a pre-war run there and ended up snagging a second card. This is an American Caramel card from 1909, the E90-1 set. This is Germany Schaefer, the Washington team. I think it was the Washington Nationals back then. Also heard quite a bit about this gentleman in the book, and take a look at this card before we even get into some facts about him. Just so awesome. I love the colors and the artwork here. Fantastic card. But anyway, this guy was a character. He was known for his quirky personality, was a bit of a jokester. He actually did a vaudeville act with a teammate in the off season. He would do just crazy things like, when it was raining, he would come out onto the field or up to the plate wearing, a raincoat and galoshes and an umbrella, things like that. And one famous story that's told about him in the book that I just finished, he was the first player to steal first base. And I forget who it is that tells the story in the book, but essentially what they claim is that there were runners on first and second. Germany Schaefer here was on first, his teammate was on second, and they executed a double steal. And the intent was to get the catcher to throw the ball to second to try to tag Schaefer out, at which time his teammate would sprint home from third and score the run. So they executed the double steal, only the catcher didn't bite. He didn't throw the ball. So now Germany Schaefer's on second, his teammate's on third. Supposedly on the next pitch, he steals first from second. He runs in reverse back to first base, steals first, so that on the following pitch, he can execute a steal again, at which point, in the book anyway, the catcher does make a throw and the runner scores from third. Now, there's been some dispute as to whether or not it was actually successful, but I don't think anyone doubts that he tried the same thing again a few years later, and that there's actually a rule now in the rule book for Major League Baseball that essentially says once you've attained the base, you can't move backwards on the base paths. And a lot of people credit Germany Schaefer for being the impetus behind that rule. So just really fascinating guy, kind of one of the early clowns of baseball. Seems like he was a really interesting personality. I love that anecdotal tale about him stealing first. And this card was not any more expensive than the Hal Chase. I think it was right around $100. So just decided to knock this one off the list as well at the same time. Wasn't on my 50 for 2023 list specifically, but I think it makes a good companion card to the Chase for this video. And lastly, just look at this awesome back. I mean, that is just beyond cool. Baseball caramels. You got a crossed pair of bats, glove, and a couple balls there. Very simple back, but I love, love, love the artwork. And it's just, this card screams turn of the century to me. And as I kind of said during the intro, I just, the little kid in me still finds it fascinating that I can own these cards of gentlemen who played the game, over 100 years ago. And, many decades before I ever took my first breath. I just find the whole era fascinating. So there is card number 21 on the 50 for 2023 project, the T206 Hal Chase, star player for the New York Americans, accompanied by Germany Schaefer. So thanks so much for stopping by to check this one out. Really appreciate you spending your valuable time with me here on the channel. And as you know, I'll be back in the very near future with some more sports card content. Till then, enjoy the hobby, everybody. Take care.